What's up, everyone? This is Mike coming to you live on another episode of One and Done with Zeke. How's it going, Zeke?
Yo, it's going good.
For today's episode, we're going to discuss the interesting relationship between booster boxes and certain single cards from those boxes, specifically the ones that people try to chase. So secrets, signature cards, things like that. So I guess we could start off with looking at Tournament Power, since that's pretty much the primary set of the game. So looking at the relationship there, early on we kind of noticed boxes, typically being more than the raw, I would say. We had, for a moment, I would say before COVID, I think boxes were averaging between $300 to $400 at the time.
Which would match the box or the price of the Secret. The Secret was about $200 to $300 as well.
Yeah, exactly. So normally it's a little bit higher, but not too much higher than a single box, which to me, I've always thought is super interesting because, one box has nowhere near a guarantee that you're going to pull the Secret, since the Secret's 1 out of 12 boxes. But somehow the way the market works, it tends to carry a price very similar to or a little bit above what the single card ungraded would cost to directly purchase. And that's kind of how it's been for a little bit, right? Then you kind of fast forward and there's COVID, and there's this huge rush to buy cards, and you kind of saw that across all card games. But with Dragon Ball, you saw boxes take a jump, went from 300 to about 500, and then the Awakened Power also jumped to about 300 to 400, if I'm not mistaken. So then you look at the graded side of things, right? And so you start out with, victory strikes for PSA 10s, typically ranging from 600 to 800 pre-COVID. And that was pretty common, basically leading up to the time that the virus really hit and things just kind of changed. And then when the virus hit and you kind of saw the growth of the booster box and the single card, you also saw the PSA 10 of it also go up in value as well, right? So you then saw it hit closer to 1,000, I would say, when the box was 500 and the card was about 300 to 400. So you kind of notice, these three have a interrelationship with each other. When one goes up, the other ones get impacted too. And so far, generally, it's been about, a box is half the price of a PSA 10. And that kind of was the pattern leading up. But then you start seeing this sort of interest in hunting these cards to grade themselves, because they were still kind of relatively cheap. Obviously, it's always going to be cheaper to buy directly, but for a lot of people, you can't trust the card you're going to get directly. Maybe the seller is just taking really good pictures, but when you get it, it's not the condition you want, or whatever the reason is. But pulling it yourself, you're a lot more comfortable grading it. So a lot of people started hunting for these boxes. As soon as it happens, though, people are like, you know what? If the boxes now are like $500-$600, it's cheaper to buy singles. So then you see singles go up. Well, if singles go up, then people are like, well, you know what? It's actually easier for me to just buy the graded card, because then I don't have to go through the hassle of hoping that the single card comes back at 10. I could just get one that's already guaranteed at 10. So then you see graded card goes up, right? So they all kind of had this interesting relation where, you're hunting one of those products, but because they're tied to the other products, those get impacted as well. And so throughout COVID, we saw this, and, come to today, where you still see that continued interest in, groups of people trying to go after boxes, and then groups of people trying to go after the ungraded, and then groups of people trying to go after the graded. And, Zeke, you have the data pulled up. What are the prices looking like today for those?
So, if we break it down, the box to Awakened Power is pretty close still. It's just significantly higher than what it was 3 months ago.
So basically about double the price, ballpark double the price of the single, which is kind of the pattern we saw from the beginning as well, right? When the card was just 300 to 400, the graded 10 was about 600 to 800. So it still kind of follows that trend, but just at a higher price now, because the raw is at a higher price and the sealed box is at a higher price. But generally, if you look at it, there's just not a lot out there. That's the whole thing about this. there's way more Goku collectors than there are graded Gokus, right? And I think, you know, you were the one that predicted this, and I give you full credit for this. 1,000 a box by the end of summer is not out of the question. And if you talk about that same relationship that we discussed about how everything's tied to each other, if boxes hit 1,000 at the end of summer, the raw is going to be right there with it, right? Because as soon as boxes go up, people have to buy the singles because the singles become easier. So singles will be right there with it, and then the graded card will be right there with it as well. So it's just, at this point, it's sky's the limit, I think, about how much this card can grow. But just to look back on these 2 years and see how far it's come, it's really unheard of.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Like it is literally like, I can't fathom like I know you and I were talking, outside of recording, we were talking about like the growth and things, and like you would think for Magic being number one, Pokemon arguably the rival to number one, Yu-Gi-Oh being the third wheel, Dragon Ball that does zero marketing, they literally rely on Facebook, a Facebook group to do all of their marketing and their own Facebook page. This is where the game is today. Like I tell Mike this all the time. If Dragon Ball or Bandai were to advertise this game a third or even a quarter of what Pokemon does, it'd be over. Like, and not just in collecting. Like I think it still has a long ways to go to match the collectability of Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon. But with this kind of exposure, like the minimal level of Bandai's lazy. Bandai's cheap and lazy. That there's no other explanation. And this is the growth. This is the exposure we're getting. Imagine if they ran TV ads. Imagine if they had end caps like they do at Target and Walmart and GameStop, and they invested in marketability in stores and on TV and on Instagram and Facebook. All of that of what Nintendo does. The player base, just the player base alone would outmatch anything that exists right now. We're in a pandemic. Every other several card games have died due to the pandemic. Yeah. And Pokemon is still strong during the pandemic. Magic's still strong during the pandemic, and Yu-Gi-Oh is still strong during the pandemic, which shows that they have a strong base. A lot of other card games have suffered significantly, and some have gone out of business. Dragon Ball was expected to dip because of the pandemic. Instead, it's staying the course and continuing the growth. Some of us, speculate that if the pandemic never hit, Dragon Ball would have took out Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh would have been number 4. Because going back to a previous conversation we've had. Channel Fireball, who does not do Yu-Gi-Oh events, does not do Pokemon events, was going to host a Dragon Ball Regionals at their home office in San Jose, their main base of operations. They weren't going to host one somewhere where it's demographically higher chance of success, like the East Coast or like Vegas or like SoCal, where Dragon Ball's had a massive success in terms of attendance. They were going to do it in San Jose. And for a company who has devoted their entire existence to Magic, to take interest in Dragon Ball was huge. Like when you have a NFL player who sponsors out of his own pocket a over $8,000 valued cash tournament in Vegas out of his own pocket for Dragon Ball, that speaks volumes. Like Channel Fireball, Daylon Mack, the accomplishments and feats that the championships for year one, the 2018 Nationals and 2019 Nationals, the trajectory of this game is just unbelievable, and you have no marketing.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like it's so organically desirable by all of the Dragon Ball fans out there that without any real investment in marketing, you're seeing growth not just in the player base but in the collector base. And I think, I'm right there with you. Going into March, Dragon Ball was was on an incredible pace to just take the community by storm. I mean, they basically were able to get the organizers that have never done anything outside of Magic. And I think that was just huge, huge. And I would not be surprised if those plans don't change once COVID is gone, because if there's anything that they could use as proof of the stability, the interest, the strength of the Dragon Ball fan base, it's the fact that they've not only survived COVID up to this point, but they've actually still grown. And to me, I think that it just speaks volumes about the potential that this game has. And it's only we're now, it started in 2017, we're in 2020, and it just still continues to do really well. So to me, a lot of the growth that we're seeing, especially with, the sets that are the most popular, these growth trajectories are definitely crazy, and they could continue to get crazier, with the way things are going. So, I'd say watch closely these relationships between sealed product, singles, and graded, because they have a really fascinating way of behaving when one is skewed. It's kind of like a scale where they're all interdependent, and when one starts to get in demand, the others tend to follow. And you can definitely notice, I mean, I remember when the gap between singles and boosters at one point was so massive. I even remember predicting, hey, this ratio doesn't make sense. Why is the box ratio to single ratio so far off? Something's got to give. And sure enough, singles jumped and caught up with boxes. And so I still see that pattern happening. And as the game continues to grow, more people come in, more collectors come in, it's going to continue. And I think we've barely scratched the surface with the reach of Dragon Ball. And it's super interesting times. Super interesting to see how these products play out, especially as the game is it's just nonstop growth.
It's crazy to me. And that's the thing, like as somebody who sells sealed product, as somebody who sells singles, as somebody who's a huge player, so somebody who judges the game, and as somebody who collects the game, I see this from every perspective. I've been playing TCGs now for 17 years. From everything I've seen, like I've owned Black Lotus, I've owned Power 9, I've traded, sold, interacted with people with Pokemon, with Charizard, like I've seen it all. Like I've held, interacted, traded so many things, and it's like nothing I can't. The closest correlation in terms of anything that comes close to compare is Pokemon, but it's just in terms of categories and chase is similar. But in terms of growth,
no, there's nothing. There's nothing. I mean, even the Charizard, which is what everybody always looks at for Pokemon, collector grail, Charizard first edition in the first 2 years, we can't talk about money total because of inflation, but percentage of growth was nowhere this. Percentage, it's just nowhere near this. I mean, Dragon Ball Awakened Power hit release date with, I think, $60 raw?
Yep, $60 raw.
And now 2 years later, raw is over 600. So within 2 years, that's 10x. That's 1,000% growth, right?
Yep.
First edition Charizard, you can tell me anything you want about how amazing the card is, how rare the card is, how popular the card is. Even in the mania of Pokemon, in the first 2 years, it did not grow 1,000%. It just didn't. So, yeah, I think there's something really special about this that is just not something that's been seen before.
Take it as you wish. I just think the relationship between TOP's booster boxes and Awakened Power will always be hand in hand, but there's just so many variables that are going into this.
Yeah, I just, it'll be interesting to watch for sure. But with everything that we've seen, you know, before in the past with this card and what we're still seeing today, yeah, sky's the limit. That's really all I can say about it. And it'll be not only interesting to watch just this card, but the other two, you know, the single, the graded, and the booster box markets, because they're all related. They're all related. So as one goes up, the others go up with it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Zeke, for your time. This was definitely a fun topic, and probably one we'll continue to watch for and update you guys on. If there's any other topics you have in mind, please feel free to share with us. We're happy to talk about it. And otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, guys.